Keeping these causes in mind, there are a variety of specific consequences associated with illegal immigration. Because the term consequences is a very wide, catch-all term that applies to almost every minuscule effect of illegal immigration, we can sort consequences into three major categories: those that pertain to the destination country, those that impact the country of origin, and those that impact the specific individuals who are affected by immigration. The majority of consequences will naturally be classified as economic, as desires for higher wages, better standard of living, and increased economic opportunity are three of the biggest factors that stimulate emigration out of one's home country. Despite this, there are still several consequences that fall outside the realm of economics, such as the individual effects on the lives of immigrants and natives of a developed country. We start with the economic effects on the destination country. The most well-documented economic effect of illegal immigration is the effect on earnings. Despite the extensive amount of research that has been done to try and come to a concrete conclusion regarding the economic impact of illegal immigration, no complete consensus has been reached. We can still consider the actual economic effects, however, through exploring the economic principles and actual observations that have been made about earnings. The actual effect of immigration on the economy as a whole is dependent on a concept called labor market theory. Labor market theory says that the average skill of immigrants relative to the average skill of the native workers of the country that they are immigrating to will determine the net positive or net negative impact of immigration on the corresponding native groups. Low-skilled immigration tends to have a negative impact on the economy, in part due to the laws of supply and demand associated with the increased demand for jobs. Wages go down due to there being increased demand for jobs, yet still a constant supply of labor in the destination country. Both earnings and employment rates decrease among natives in this case, as many low-skilled, blue-collar workers are replaceable by foreign immigrants who can work the same jobs. This entire notion of low-skilled immigration hurting the economy is exacerbated when considering the specific case of illegal immigrants, as they tend to be lower skilled than natives. Because the immigrants are undocumented, private businesses can provide lower wages than the federal minimum wage to illegal immigrants, resulting in a cycle of undercutting earnings that shoves natives out and lowers earnings as a whole. By contrast, natives with skills that are complementary to those of immigrants are likely to benefit from illegal immigration, as their own jobs are not threatened by the increased number of workers in the system. Another economic effect of illegal immigration is that of the earnings inequality between workers of a destination country. Earnings inequality can be affected for a specific country depending on the skill level of the immigrants who are coming over. For example, if there are many immigrants entering the workforce who, on average, have a very low skill level relative to that of native workers, such as in the case of many illegal immigrants, inequality will increase. This is due to the fact that low-skilled wages decrease naturally as a result of the increased competition provided by illegal immigration. By contrast, high-skilled wages will appear relatively higher due to the lower prices that businesses can put out in response to offering lower wages. A good model for this phenomenon is the disparity between the trend of earnings inequality in two geographically close countries, Canada and the US. It was found that immigrants to Canada were on average more skilled than natives, and thus Canada experienced a decrease in earnings inequality. By contrast, because of the prevalence of illegal immigrants in the US, immigrants to the US are on average less skilled than natives, and thus the US experiences more polarizing earnings depending on one's position on the economic ladder. As touched on earlier, prices in the destination country tend to follow a trend similar to that of earnings, as the two are heavily related. The excess supply of labor that illegal immigration causes lowers wages for workers, and thus lowers employment costs for businesses. These lower employment costs for businesses are then passed on to customers in the form of lower prices. A study in 2008 found that a 10% increase in the number of low-skilled immigrants in the workforce would cause a 2% decrease in the prices of jobs heavily occupied by immigrants, and this phenomenon would only be intensified by the influx of illegal immigrants. This inverse relationship between number of immigrants and prices is not a hard and fast rule, however, as some goods may actually go up in price due to the increased demand provided by immigrants and more people in the workforce. it is mainly the goods that immigrants produce themselves that go down in prices, by the model explained here, and outside goods that are produced by jobs which immigrants aren't actively occupying that go up in prices. Now that we have discussed the economic consequences of illegal immigration on a destination country, we can observe the other side and consider the effects on a sending country. A large aspect of mass emigration that we must consider is the type of people who are emigrating out of a sending country, as this can heavily affect the types of consequences that ensue. The first effect is a decrease in labor force in sending countries due to the sheer number of natives who emigrate illegally. Due to the resulting lower labor force available in such countries, the laws of supply and demand dictate that the natives that stayed behind receive higher wages. Those that stay behind in sending countries can also benefit from things called remittances. Remittances are essentially small sums of money that an individual who has emigrated sends back to someone in his or her home country. From an outside perspective, this is beneficial for the natives of sending countries, as they receive a sizable influx of money from those that emigrated. This concept is even more significant when considering that the money being sent back to family or friends can be spent at a developing country's prices, which tend to be much lower, thus causing a boost in purchasing power for anyone lucky enough to receive these remittances. In general, when a member of a group migrates and reaps higher economic rewards from a more well-developed country, a lot of the wealth they garner is actually transferred to other members of the group. This makes it easier for further migration to occur, ultimately leading to the creation of a migration stream from this group. A migration stream is the tendency for similar people of the country to recognize their friends' and family's successes and be encouraged to emigrate in order to model these successes. This is especially true in the case of illegal immigrants, as many take large risks to emigrate simply to be with family members and also indulge in greater financial gain. Not only are there large-scale consequences for the countries that immigrants leave and the countries that they move to, there are individual consequences for each immigrant. It is often difficult for immigrants to assimilate into the societies they go to. In some cases, the new life of the immigrant is not much better than the life they left. Although they might have a better chance at a higher-paying job, they lose other comforts in life. Undocumented immigrants have to maneuver daily life without being detected, so they live in constant fear that they might be caught and deported back to their country of origin. Following the path of undocumented immigrants from Mexico, it is clear that the fear of being caught is at the forefront of their consciousness. The most common place of settlement for the immigrants is not at the border, but on the contrary, the most common destination is a sizable distance from the border. The patrol for undocumented immigrants is strongest closer to the border, so they reside far enough that their chance of being caught is monumentally lower. This same fear of being caught means that undocumented immigrants cannot seek the help of the United States government. Without the support of government aid that helps people below the poverty line, undocumented immigrants run the risk of malnutrition or other health problems that they do not have the funds to treat. If an undocumented immigrant were to find themselves in a situation where they withstood physical or financial damage, they would be less likely to seek the help of the government because of the risk of being caught. This means that undocumented immigrants are more likely to be harmed without anything to show for it. Not only are undocumented immigrants at a higher risk of harm due to criminal activity, they are at higher risk at the workplace as well. Undocumented immigrants often have to resort to working in terrible conditions. Normally, unsafe working conditions would lead to the forming of unions among the workers. Because of the fear of being caught, undocumented immigrants are not able to form unions or have anyone to appeal to. Employers have leverage over the workers, knowing that the workers have no alternative. This can give immigrants dangerous work conditions and low pay without consequence. In the end, a foreigner's decision on whether or not to immigrate illegally becomes a matter of risk versus reward. Unfortunately, many times that decision is a lose-lose situation, where life on either side of the border is a struggle. An immigrant has to weigh the advantages of the United States against the disadvantages. The labor market and general safety of the United States is beneficial, but the risk of being caught and the life of constant fear specific to undocumented immigrants can cripple their chance at a full life. As we can see, the causes of illegal immigration are rooted in economic factors, but these factors aren't the only things driving people to emigrate out of their home countries. Other aspects of an immigrant's home country, such as political or religious turmoil, could be coupled with economic reasons and at times even be the primary reason for someone to migrate illegally. In terms of consequences, many of the effects of illegal immigration are simply an extension of those that result from immigration in general, simply to a greater extent. It is the amalgamation of economic, political, religious, and volitional reasons that comprise the causes and consequences of illegal immigration.